Fleetmaster Yektal. A railgun round slams into the shields of the Fleetmaster's flagship, Vengeful Retribution. The lights inside the ship flicker, and the hull groans as power is diverted from the bio/metal hull to the shields. He has no idea how long his ship can hold up in this predicament, powerful as it was. The Vengeful Retribution was the largest ship in the Galactic Council's fleet, over 3 kilometers long, its sleek and flowing hull made of superfine strands of durable plant fibers and iron, glistening under the light of Harmony's sun. The design was permeated with pockmarks of auto turrets, firing irradiated bolts of superheated nuclear waste towards their relentless enemy. "The human ships measure in the hundreds, communications are in chaos," yelled Obata, the Vice Minister of War for the Galactic Council. "We must fall back." "Coward," shot back Yektal, "we are just getting started. We have very few enemies in this system. We will prevail." Or at least Yektal thought. He wasn't what the humans would see as a sane individual. Ever since he had his frontal lobe removed, he has been unable to feel emotion and lacked reason. In humans, this would be completely unacceptable for military personnel. In the alien races of the Council, however. Aliens of the Council are very apprehensive, and overall completely against military action. Removing the frontal lobe removes all the taboo and resentment towards war, turning what was once a caring or anti-war individual into a killing machine with no consciousness. Yektal and his fleets would have victory, or they would have death. "Release the drones. Have them scour the asteroids for mines and defenses," Yektal ordered. He needed the pesky autocannons and mining lasers dealt with before he could safely send his fleet of 40 to destroy Harmony. "But sir, we will lose most of our—" protested Obata before he was cut off by Yektal. "We will lose this battle if we don't clear out the asteroid belt." To Yektal it was clear. The lives of thousands of fighter pilots mean nothing if they are going to die in the desolated hangar of their ships, or in the heat of battle above an asteroid. What matters is that they will die, so others can survive instead of waiting for orders. "Yes, sir," yelled the young Katesh individual at the communications terminal. His voice was soon broadcast all over the ship, the loudspeakers screeching louder than even the blaring alarms. "All fighters to battle stations, I repeat. All fighters to battle stations." "Well, let's clear out these humans once and for all," Yektal grumbled. Alarms wailed and the fiber metal composite groaned and shuddered as the many thousands of Takesh warriors thundered towards their fighters. Impressive darts of plant fibers, outfitted with strong energy weapons, littered the hangar like sunspots. The gargantuan hangar doors cracked and popped as they slid aside, allowing the fighters and their brave crew access to the harsh vacuum of space. New Madison, capital of Harmony. Loudspeakers wailed endlessly, screaming at the panicked crowd to leave their belongings and evacuate. The loudspeakers called for order. The populace responded with everything but. The city was half destroyed before the aliens even got there. Glass shattered, cars abandoned. Some stubborn few drifted aimlessly through the streets. The impressive city once held 15 million, mostly immigrants from what was once known as the Midwest. The first settlers were from Wisconsin, parts of Michigan, Illinois, and Minnesota. That, however, was very long ago. The Midwest today was a sprawling ecumene. The cities of Chicago, Milwaukee, and Minneapolis all blended into a single vast expanse of metal, concrete, and glass spires. The planet of Harmony was much more similar to the states of old than the original lands themselves. Massive cities dotted the landscape of sprawling fields and farms that covered the surface, the cities acting as hubs of commerce and as lifelines into the greater republic, their towering space elevators exporting more than enough dairy, grain, corn, and various fuels to keep the ravenous public satisfied. For the 200 years Harmony was settled, it thrived, it grew, it survived. With the alien attack, its days were numbered. The only question was how many would be trapped on the surface until after it is too late. Will Baker. In the asteroid belts of the system, the mining vessels were hanging on by the skin of their teeth. Alien starfighters were decimating the fleet like a pack of wolves, ripping off the limbs of a still-kicking, still-aware defense force. One by one, the brave defenders fell, trying to make a difference, dying in the superheated bolts of plasma that didn't stop coming. Will punched some buttons on his console, beginning a broadcast to his remaining ships. "All local units, fall back to the rear fallback line," yelled Captain Will Baker. Born and raised on Harmony, he was determined to see the fight out till the end. "If we make it through this, I'll owe every one of you a beer." He once again punched the console and stopped broadcasting. "If that's all you're offering, I may as well die now," shot back Mike Wallace, a full-time miner who knew these asteroids like the back of his hand. He also happened to be Will's first mate. "It's gonna work, but when it does, I need more than just a beer." "All right," replied Will, trying to make himself heard over the deafening sound of the hull groaning from their GAU-100 autocannon. It sent 3,000 revolutions per minute of white-hot, 100 rounds of ammunition towards whatever used to be its target. Due to its immense force, however, it could only fire at a speed of the still impressive 1,000 revolutions per minute on a small ship like Will's. If it shot any faster, it risked ripping the ex-mining vessel apart. Season tickets to every Packer game back on Earth. Will flinched as a bolt of plasma scraped the shields of the ship, missing a killing blow by only a matter of 2 or 3 feet. "Deal. Just get us to the rendezvous and I'll bring the hammer down." Will looked around his sensors and punched a button on his flight command center. He began his broadcast to FleetCom back at Earth. "Falling back to rendezvous now. We can't hold much longer, but this will buy us some time." Will paused for a moment to think of words to impress Admiral Westman, but nothing came. "Wish us luck." Will waited an agonizing 3 seconds to get a response from FleetCom. "Help's coming soon. Hold out for a couple more minutes. Krieger is en route to your system, ETA, 15 minutes, Admiral Westman said, his calmness shining through the madness that was the munitions flying all around him. Will then punched another button on his command center, now transmitting to the ships under his command. "Everyone fall back to the rendezvous point. Make sure it looks like you're running." Will stopped for a moment, trying to think of something inspiring to say. "Every second is another 1,000 lives saved. Make each one count." Will had no idea whether or not that was true. The number of people they saved each second was unknown to him. It seemed to have the desired effect, however. He swore he saw the ships under his command firing and moving a bit faster than they had before. "All right, Mike, get it ready," Will barked over the whine of his strained engine. "We're on the clock. Already on it," screamed back Mike, tinkering with a large device in the rear hangar. The plan was simple. Lure the fleet into following them through the asteroids to finish them off, only to detonate a nuclear mine once they got too close, destroying the majority of enemy forces and buying Will and his fleet some much-needed time. "It's ready." Mike made a mad dash for the airlock door and stumbled inside. He slammed the emergency door control lever to the closed position and yelled to Will, "I'm out! Drop it now and gun it!" The G-forces of the sudden acceleration flung Mike into the airlock door. Will was busy informing his troops, "Payload is away! Get the hell out of Dodge!" Will strained the engine past its breaking point and willed it to go faster. His sensors indicated everyone else was doing the same. "This is Captain Will to FleetCom. Bomb is away." Will switched off the communications and diverted all his remaining power to shields. His sensors went dark, and he hoped that their plan would work. In what felt like hours but was only 15 seconds, Will reminisced about his days as a child, working on his family's farm on Harmony, driving tractors, maintaining drones, caring for animals, all the things he hated most back then. Now he longed for nothing more than to live to do it all again. His daydreams were thrust back into reality with a tremendous shockwave of force. The hull shuddered and groaned, long cracks and fissures forming on the interior walls. The ship shook violently, and several electronics began to pop and spark from the sudden spike in power consumption. The shield strained and weakened as the shaking only got worse. Luckily for Will and Mike, the shockwave passed, and the shields held. Mike tenderly touched the back of his head and felt warm blood. He had cut it on a sharp piece of metal when the ship shook violently. He braced himself against a railing and stood up. His vision faded to black, and he very nearly passed out, catching himself at the last second. He clung to the wall for dear life and limped his way back to the cockpit. Will was busy getting systems back online. They stubbornly refused to cooperate, and took far longer than expected to come back to life. Once the communications came back online, he instantly pushed some buttons and began talking to his fleet. "If you can hear me, please respond. I repeat, please respond." Will began to panic, second-guessing whether or not anyone else made it. "If you can hear me, please respond."
Fire Team 1, everybody is still alive. Fire Team 2, all hands on deck. Fire Team 3, multiple ships crippled. No casualties, but we need help.
Will breathed a sigh of relief, then asking one final time, "Fire Team 4, please respond."
The enemy Isa Nad, we need immediate assista.
Will glanced down and saw the sensors begin returning to life. He saw the ships of Fire Team 4 being quickly picked off. Then, to his horror, he saw that the alien flagship had survived. Fighters began to swarm at the survivors of the fire team. Completely exposed and out of the asteroid field, they had nothing to hide behind. The plasma weapons of the capital ship began to shine to their true, terrifying capacity. Ships fell one by one under the might of the mighty battleship. He turned to Mike for assistance, only to be greeted by a strong uppercut to his jaw. Mike's body was in utter agony, clearly suffering from a severe concussion and quite possibly multiple broken bones. He was in hell. He hobbled his way to the cockpit but stopped to rest about halfway through the hallway. Right in front of him lay an intersection in the ship's hallway. It led left and right to two single-person escape pods. He looked both ways and came to a shocking realization. One of the escape pods had been destroyed. Looking through the viewport of the left escape pod, he saw jagged, twisted metal exposed to the vacuum of space. He wiped his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things. To make himself completely sure, he began limping down the hall. It had only confirmed his vision's realization. There was only going to be one person getting off this bird if it came down to it. He began to walk toward the intersection once again, turning into the main hallway and marching towards the cockpit. He carefully observed the situation. He soon saw that the enemy had not been completely destroyed. He then realized what needed to be done. When Will turned to him for assistance, he punched him in the jaw. Will was knocked out cold, and now couldn't stop Mike from doing what he was about to do. Mustering what little strength he had left, he dragged Will down the hall. Every muscle in his body ached and yelled for him to rest. Mike kept pushing on. He brought Will to the intersection and began to drag him towards safety. 10 feet, 5 feet there. He hoisted the dead weight of Will's unconscious body into the escape pod, closed the airlock, and manually ejected the pod. Mike collapsed from the exhaustion of his efforts, falling into a deep sleep, never to be woken again. Will woke up in an escape pod. He found himself alone and his jaw in stabbing pain. His windows offering a clear view of Harmony. To Will's horror, it was ablaze. He cleared his head and looked around. Wreckage of ships dotted the space around him. Nearby, he saw the hull of what was once his ship split in two. Soon after, his comms began to cackle.
This is Admiral Krieger of the Trappist First. Is anyone left out there?
Even Will, in his deteriorated state, could hear the desperation in the Admiral's voice. Will mustered his strength and clicked the device on. "This is Captain Will Baker. I am adrift in an escape pod. How many made—" He coughed and massaged his aching jaw. "How many made it out?"
Half the civilians managed to get off the planet before the space elevators were destroyed.
The Admiral's voice faltered and trailed off. You're the only military left in the system." Will's heart sunk to the bottom of his chest. "You did all you could."